For many, the 12th century was a period categorized by hardship and turmoil, especially for the peasant population of Great Britain, who toiled on farmlands under King Stephen's reign. Known as the Norman period, English society began a transformation during this era, following civil war and political instability. Towns began to develop for the first time, and agriculture was the best chance for survival for most medieval families. However, there were some communities that remained untouched by urbanization and held tight to tradition. It was in one of these small villages that a bizarre and unexplainable phenomenon occurred, involving the sudden appearance of two mysterious children with green skin. The village of Woolpit in Suffolk was named after the large pits that farmers would dig out in order to trap wolves and protect their livestock, otherwise known as wolf pits. As the name suggests, farming was the primary occupation for the serf families of Woolpit. Under feudalism, these farmers had to pay 10% of their earnings or crops to the church and were at the mercy of the seasons in terms of what crops they could grow, sell, and eat. Rather than attending school, children were expected to help harvest crops and care for livestock as soon as they were physically capable to do so. Women were responsible for spinning wool and making clothes for the whole family as the men worked the land. These families all slept together in one-room, windowless huts made of straw, clay, and twigs. Serfs who were under direct control of a noble were known as villeins, and they had to seek permission from the nobles in order to move their families or even get married. While the lives of these serfs were grueling, there was one aspect that made survival possible: the cultivation of a crop new to Europe. Customary to much of the world today, beans in 12th century Europe were making a balanced diet possible for peasants for the first time. Curiously, this important crop was also tied to one of the strangest stories to come out of Woolpit through the centuries. There are several versions of this legend. In one version, two children were found in one of the wolf pits surrounding the village. In another, they were found standing in the entrance of a cavern. The details from there only get more eerie. There was one boy and one girl, each wearing clothing that was only described as strangely colored. They spoke in an unknown language that nobody in the village could understand or recognize. Strangest of all, the skin of each child was green. The villagers tried to feed the children, but they refused to eat any food. Inexplicably, it wasn't until they were offered fava beans that they finally began to eat. Despite the mystery surrounding the green children, they were taken in by a man named Richard de Conn. Over time, Richard taught the children English and helped them expand their diet, which caused their skin to slowly lose its green color. As the children began to communicate more, Richard learned that they were brother and sister. But as they revealed more about who they were and where they came from, it left him with more questions than answers. The sister told Richard that they came from a place where the sun did not shine, and the sky looked like twilight. In another account, the world was described as entirely green, like their skin. Supposedly, their homeland was separated by a river from another piece of land that emitted a bright light. The girl called this otherworldly place St. Martin's Land, and although she could not name the country where it was located or anything else about its geography, she told Richard that it was generally Christian and contained churches like in England. In one account, the children went on to explain that at one moment they were helping herd their father's cattle, and the next moment they were in Woolpit with no memory of how they got there. In another version, they followed the herd into a cavern within their world. They eventually became lost in the cavern before following the sound of bells coming from the village of Woolpit, re-emerging at the entrance of the cavern on the other side, in a new world. Richard continued to help the children adjust to their new lives and arranged for them to be baptized. Shortly after the baptism, however, the young boy fell ill and passed away. The sister continued to live a long life. In one story, she worked as a house servant, going by the name of Agnes. According to the de Conn family history, she eventually married a judge and clergyman named Richard Barr, who worked under both King Henry II and King Richard I. No other information is known about Agnes, or if she ever spoke of her home world again. The legend of the Green Children of Woolpit was first documented by two chroniclers. William of Newburgh, whose death was recorded in 1198, was likely the first of the two men to recount this story. He specified the time frame for the event to have taken place between the years 1135 and 1154, and that the children were discovered in one of the wolf pits. The second chronicler was Ralph of Coggeshall, who likely wrote his version during the 1220s. In his version, the children enter Woolpit by passing through the cavern. In the Middle Ages, it was common for chroniclers to copy entire sections of a previous chronicler's inscription, word for word. However, researchers note that while both versions of the story share similarities, Coggeshall's version seems to be independently written, despite it being dated after Newburgh's. Both men believed the story of the Green Children to be true and documented it as fact. Newburgh himself stated he was overcome by the testimony of so many witnesses of such weight. Coggeshall claimed that he sourced his information directly from Richard de Conn. Could the Green Children of Woolpit really be just a folktale? Or is it a garbled account of a bizarre but explainable event? While there's no way to know for sure how this story came to be, researchers have come up with a few theories. Some posit that an influx of Flemish immigration to England could account for the children's appearance. After King Stephen's chaotic reign, King Henry II took power, and under his authority many Flemish immigrants faced persecution and death. Many adults were killed, leaving behind orphaned children. Parentless children wearing strange clothes and speaking in an unknown language would point to this explanation. But what about the green skin? There's a couple of conditions that may cause green skin in humans, including hypochromic anemia. Previously known as sclerosis, this condition causes red blood cells to take on a more pale hue, giving the skin a greenish tint. It can be caused by infections or vitamin deficiency, which wouldn't have been out of the ordinary for children living through the Middle Ages. However, besides the boundless imagination of children, there's not much that can explain the otherworldly realm of St. Martin's Land described by Agnes and her brother. More fantastical explanations describe the children as extraterrestrials who ended up on Earth by accident. One fictional story, written by William Godwin in 1638, describes a group of people who dwelt on Earth's moon and sent their children to live on Earth as a form of punishment. Humans on Earth thought these children to be changelings. The fairy tale goes on to describe the skin of changeling children as indescribable, like asking a blind man to describe the difference between blue and green. Whether they're described as aliens or fairies from another world, the Green Children of Woolpit inspired many later adaptations and tales. But whether or not the original story was a folktale may never be known. Some of the details, like the children traveling through a cave from world to world, were common motifs found in folklore at the time. In the Middle Ages, literature used the human body as a symbol for society. The sickly green children could be seen as a representation of Woolpit recovering from political instability and desperation, with the help of introducing beans as a new crop to medieval Europe. The theme of the mysterious other could have been speaking to the experience of assimilation, and the children themselves could have acted as commentary on the changing landscape of society. Whatever the explanation, the legend of the Green Children of Woolpit has survived through the ages due to its mystery and abnormality, and will likely live on to mystify future folklore enthusiasts. Hi, I'm Dominique Dibbell. I narrated the video you just watched. I hope you enjoyed this bizarre folktale. Leave a comment below and let us know about any other myths, legends, or bizarre events from history you'd like us to explore. We'll meet right back here for some bedtime stories that might just give you nightmares.